Greetings, friends. You're on the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we're going to talk about events in Ukraine on November 11th, 2025. The day has been packed with major developments, and we'll break down everything that matters. Despite the sheer volume of political stories, including high-profile corruption scandals inside Ukraine, we'll start, as usual, at the front. That's where the most visible and dynamic changes are happening, and they deserve our attention. First, the Zaporizhia axis, more precisely, the western Zaporizhia sector, where Russian forces continue the assault and siege of Stepnohorsk. Numerous units of the Russian armed forces are involved here, including operators from the 7th Heaven Group. They are controlling all Ukrainian logistics and resupply in this area. Fresh footage shows these operators delivering precision strikes on Ukrainian artillery positions situated in the fields near Magdalenivka. Units are also active around Vasilevka. Video recordings show the Ukrainian side trying to move reinforcements towards Stepnohorsk, but every column is stopped roughly 10 kilometers from the town. In effect, the Ukrainian command has lost the ability to supply and reinforce the Stepnohorsk garrison. Ammunition and logistics are critically strained there, and this stronghold, essentially a citadel, is being ground down by continuous Russian strikes. Released footage shows mortar crews and assault groups at work. Next is the eastern Zaporizhia direction, which has delivered important news several days in a row. Yesterday, Russian forces completed the clearance of the settlements of Sladkoy and Novoy. Numerous objective control clips were published, showing Russian units sweeping blocks, raising flags, and consolidating new positions. All of this data was verified and entered into the maps. The surprises didn't end there. Today, November 11th, troops from the Vostok grouping also cleared the settlement of Novouspensskoye. New combat footage appeared. Strikes on Ukrainian positions, Russian units advancing, and closing frames with the Russian tricolor. Based on these materials, we updated the map on our platform. Compared with how the map looked on November 8th, when the so-called Hulyai-Pol offensive began, the changes are striking. Each day, Russian troops push deeper, and the latest adjustments suggest the Ukrainian side is losing control over more and more territory. It's telling that even pro-Ukrainian mapping services have been forced to acknowledge these changes, showing a vast grey zone reaching almost to Hulyai-Pol. Particularly notable is a salient along the road toward the village of Yablokovo, where Russian units have already begun their assault. In addition, the grey zone covers half of Ravnopoli, indicating that settlement may soon come under Russian control. If the current pace holds, we could see new footage within the next 2 or 3 days, perhaps sooner, showing Russian flags raised in these two villages. That would mean the Zaporizhia front has effectively been breached. After such gains, it will be extremely difficult for the Ukrainian side to hold the northern and northeastern outskirts of Hulyai-Pol. Given the present tempo of operations, there's a strong likelihood that the battle for Hulyai-Pol will conclude in November. Just a month ago, military analysts predicted the fight for the town might drag into January 2026. But the dynamics have shifted. Russian units are advancing at an unexpectedly rapid rate. Now to the Pokrovsk sector. Here, too, we're receiving a stream of fresh data and videos that help clarify how the situation is evolving. The Pokrovsk agglomeration remains one of the hottest areas, drawing daily debate and statements from the Ukrainian command. General Siversk and President Zelensky regularly comment, aiming to present the situation as under control. But as often happens, the reality on the ground suggests otherwise. Siversk made a notable slip today, saying the Russian army is preparing for the final maneuver. Those words can be read as an admission that Ukraine's defenses here are close to exhaustion. Even in his own framing, it's clear this final maneuver by Russia could bring its forces to the administrative boundary of Donetsk region with Dnipropetrovsk and Kharkiv. What does this final maneuver look like in practice? Today, 3 videos from Pokrovsk and its surroundings are being widely discussed. The first video is among the most telling. It shows dozens, possibly hundreds, of Russian soldiers moving in columns through city streets. Geolocation confirmed it is Pokrovsk. Columns of vehicles and troops pass through without visible resistance from the Ukrainian side, under the cover of thick fog. The scenes evoke well-known films where convoys traverse an emptied world. an image of an impending end to the defense. What's especially striking is that according to Siversk and Zelensky, the city supposedly has only 360 Ukrainian fighters remaining. Yet in this single clip, you can count hundreds of Russian soldiers. Extrapolate across the city, and we're talking about several thousand. Those forces are now conducting systematic block-by-block clearance, steadily expanding their control. The second widely discussed video comes from the settlement of Rodinska. The footage, published by Ukrainian sources, shows a Ukrainian tank counterattacking on the southern edge of Rodinska. Geolocation has pinned down the exact filming site. The tank crew fires on a building whose coordinates are known and marked on the map. Ukrainian sources present the video as recent, claiming it was shot on November 9th or 10. However, accompanying details suggest the situation there is far from straightforward, and Ukrainian armor appears to be acting more out of desperation than from a solid strategic posture. Thus, the situation on the Pokrovsk front is evolving rapidly. Step by step, the Russian army is taking control of key settlements, while Ukrainian units, despite confident statements from their command, are losing the ability to hold their defenses. Everything indicates that the battle for the Pokrovsk agglomeration is reaching its conclusion, and that conclusion may come much sooner than many expected. However, analysts with access to verified intelligence have compared the footage with up-to-date satellite images and geolocation data from this area. According to satellite imagery from October 7, 2025, the very building seen in that video had already been severely damaged, apparently by an airstrike or heavy artillery shelling. Based on this analysis, experts concluded that the footage must have been filmed well before that date. In other words, the events shown took place at least a month earlier, most likely when Russian units were only beginning to consolidate their positions in this sector. For this reason, even though several mapping platforms, including our own, added a grey zone in this area, those corrections turned out to be premature. After additional verification, it became clear that the footage was archival. This means there was no real Ukrainian advance near Rodinske. We've decided to wait for further confirmation before making any final updates to the maps based solely on verified information. Now let's move on to the third video clip, which has become the most discussed from the Pokrovsk direction today. It shows the de facto blockade of the southern districts of Pokrovsk, or possibly of southern Mirnohrad. Dozens, if not hundreds, of FPV drone strikes rain down on Ukrainian supply lines. Not a single column manages to evacuate. Each is struck in succession, completely paralyzing all movement. Afterward, a short segment of intercepted radio chatter surfaced online, reportedly between Ukrainian units stationed in southern Mirnohrad. In it, the soldiers issue an ultimatum to their command. Either they are supplied with food and ammunition, or they will surrender. One of them says that over the past week, each man had eaten only a single piece of candy. Such was the level of deprivation inside the garrison. Naturally, this communication was intercepted by the Russian side. In response, Russian forces dropped leaflets over southern Mirnohrad, giving clear instructions on how Ukrainian troops could surrender. The leaflets were scattered specifically over the southern part of the city, over the same stronghold where the last Ukrainian defenders were holding out. According to the author of the video, part of the Ukrainian contingent accepted the offer and capitulated. Reliable sources report that 25 Ukrainian soldiers surrendered from that southern Mirnohrad citadel. For now, the map for this area remains unchanged. We are waiting for additional verification before marking the exact zone. Still, the fact of the leaflet drop has been geolocated. The footage shows a distinctive park and building that allowed precise confirmation of the coordinates. In one fragment, you can even see Ukrainian soldiers, though the moment of their exit from the stronghold is not captured. It's possible they left not directly through the citadel, but via residential streets to the south, perhaps from the direction of Suki Yar. Nevertheless, when all this evidence is viewed together, it becomes clear that mass surrenders among Ukrainian units are beginning. 25 men at once is already a significant number. Nothing like this has happened in the entire 2 years of hostilities. This is not an isolated episode, it's a signal. A signal that the Ukrainian defense is starting to collapse, and judging by the trend, capitulations may soon become more frequent. Perhaps not in tens, but in hundreds of soldiers. Meanwhile, pro-Russian mapping sources have published new updates. According to their data, the entire perimeter of Pokrovsk is now under the control of the Russian armed forces. Russian troops continue to expand their area of influence toward the town of Hryshine and are already approaching its outskirts. Evidently, this is the very final maneuver that General Siversk mentioned earlier, the mass concentration of Russian forces numbering in the tens of thousands across the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. Once it's complete, Ukrainian troops will be pushed out of urban zones into open fields, where defending themselves will be impossible. This, apparently, is the strategic goal of the current operational stage. From there, the Russian army will be able to advance unimpeded through the smaller settlements still under Ukrainian control. And if the current pace continues, this section of the front may be completely cleared by winter or early spring. No major Ukrainian-held cities remain in this zone. The nearest settlement large enough to serve as a support hub is Pavlohrad. Other major cities, Siversk, Sloviansk, Kostiantynivka, and Druzhkivka, are located much farther away in an entirely different direction, making any transfer of reserves toward Pokrovsk extremely difficult. We now move further north to the Siversk-Lyman axis. From this part of the front, a large amount of geolocated footage continues to arrive, but the line itself remains largely stable. Combat here has entered a prolonged siege-like phase. The Russian army maintains tight fire control over all major supply routes and logistics corridors. Ukrainian units continue to send reinforcements, yet nearly all of their equipment and personnel are destroyed on approach by precise FPV drone strikes. In essence, this has become a battle of attrition. The Ukrainian side is steadily losing manpower and resources, unable to sustain a consistent flow of ammunition and supplies. The main difficulty lies with the Siversky Donets River. Crossing it is a dangerous endeavor for Ukrainian troops. Any attempt at a crossing instantly draws the attention of Russian drones. And finally, the Kupiansk sector. From here came perhaps the most important news of the past day. The Russian Ministry of Defense has officially confirmed the complete liberation of the eastern part of Kupiansk. This information appeared in an official report, though it remains unclear what exactly is meant by Eastern Kupiansk. It could refer to areas east of the Oskil River or to specific southeastern and northeastern districts of the city. The report didn't specify. Regardless, Russian authorities have updated their maps, marking the eastern sector as cleared. Confirmation also came from multiple field commanders active in the area. In newly released footage, the commander of an assault detachment from a motorized rifle regiment, call sign Hunter, reported that over the past day, his unit captured several railway stations and a fuel depot. Specifically, he mentioned the Olivina station, which has now been secured, and noted ongoing fighting near the eastern arrival rail yard. According to recent updates, Russian troops are pushing into the northern part of Kupiansk Uzlovy. Additional footage confirms that a nearby fuel storage facility has also come under Russian control. Based on this information, the maps were adjusted, though not entirely colored in, since the situation in the nearby settlements of Kucherivka, Petropavlivka, and Kurilivka remains uncertain. Fighting continues there. Taking into account confirmed geolocations, Russian troops seen in Kurilivka, and active battles for the eastern arrival station, it appears that a new pocket is forming for Ukrainian forces. The neck of this potential encirclement is estimated at about 5 kilometers wide, encompassing Kucherivka, Podoli, Kurilivka, and Petropavlivka. The Ukrainian army is attempting to break out via crossings along the Oskil River, but every attempt ends the same way. Columns of vehicles destroyed by precise FPV drone strikes. Footage shows Ukrainian troops trying to build temporary bridges, but none survive for long, each is hit almost instantly. The central part of Kupiansk Uzlovy is also under heavy fire control, making further resistance virtually impossible. In summary, the battles for Kupiansk, Pokrovsk, and Mirnohrad are steadily drawing to a close. At the same time, offensives near Hulyapol, Siversk, and Lyman are gaining momentum. All signs point to the front entering a cascading advance. A domino effect where one breakthrough triggers a chain of others. That's all for now, friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and stay tuned for upcoming reports. Take care and see you soon.